Hello and welcome to Digital Hospital Training Week 3. So we've already gone through how to navigate through PowerChart. We've created our patient task list, we've added in allergies, and we've documented our home medications. So the next step as a pharmacist is we're actually going to be creating our admission note with our medications. We're also going to be reviewing those medications against anything charted, creating interventions if required, and also reviewing and verifying our medications through PharmNet. So PharmNet is another software that we use as pharmacists once we go digital. It's not to do with PowerChart, it's a separate software item altogether, and basically it was created because PowerChart and iPharmacy don't talk to each other, so we have software in between basically to help link PowerChart up to iPharmacy. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later. So just to recap what we did last week, we created a multi-patient task list. So we're in here and we need to finish up seeing our patient. So remember, we can go and see them from any of these tabs opening up the chart. So back to pharmacy consults. We were looking at Erin last week, so we're going to click back on Erin and open the patient chart back up to the patient summary as well. So just refreshing our page. Sometimes it does take a little bit of a lag. No worries. So we can see as well by having a snapshot of this patient that they have ischemic heart disease and reflux as well. We can also note that our patient told us that they do have their own thyroxine, so we can, and if we've confirmed that with the patient and potentially another source, we can actually add that in as a chronic problem as well. And how we can do that is down this tab at alerts and problems. We can actually add that in too by free typing that in. And it can pop up looking for what we look for and double clicking on hypothyroid and clicking OK. So now that's been added to our problem list as well. Before we do our progress notes, it's always a good idea to update these things because these things actually get pre-populated once we do our admission history. So moving on, that's been updated there. We go back to our patient summary page. As you can see, it's only got the 2 items. We just need to refresh. And we now have the 3 chronic problems there as well. So next what we're going to be doing is creating our progress note with our medication history in it. So how we do that is through the documentation tab, so on the left hand side, clicking on that. We have nothing currently at the moment. We're going to click on add. So the type that we're going to be using is it's just going to be a progress note inpatient. But what we can do, we've got all these templates here, so we can actually select a template that's already got information in there for us that we can fill out. So for us, we use the pharmacist admission history. But you can also create this as a favourite if you like by just clicking on the star. Most favourites now go into your folders up the top here. So once we've done that, we're going to click OK. So some of that information has already come over. So if you don't know what their presenting complaint is, you can actually free type that in. We can just say that they may have had a GI upset. We can also put in their past medical history, which was in here as well. We've got active. We've also got their chronic medication. So you can see there that my hypothyroid is there now as well. If we know the patient has any surgical history, we could have already added that in another section, or we can actually free type that in. So we could say the patient had a stent done in 2016 February. We can see the allergies are there, so they've been updated for us as well. If we had any pathology results, they can pop up. If we know their community pharmacy, general practitioner, residential care, we can add those information in there as well, as we would normally. Scrolling down, we've got our home medications in there. And as you can see as well, we've also got our investigating of our esomeprazole as well. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to reconcile these medications against what's already charted. Just scrolling down what we've got there. So how we can do that, if we've only got one screen that we're going to be using, we're going to use what's called the tear off function. So we've got this little tear off icon up in our taskbar. What that does is it tears off this page so we can compare it against something else. So I'm going to move it over to the side there. so we can see. Just make that a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do in our left-hand side is go back to our MAR, so where our medications are currently charted. So I might just pin that back so we can have a bit more room. Okay, so this is currently what's been charted, so we can compare what's charted against what we've got. So what we're currently doing to put in our annotations is we're going to copy and paste this, so Control C. We're going to go over to this X that's in line with the home word there, take it out, go back to your home medications, put free text in there and go Control V. The reason why we need to do this is that we cannot actually annotate any of these wordings unless we do that copying function. We can add to the bottom, but we can't put our annotations next to it. So what I'm going to see is that, first of all, our amlodipine. Our amlodipine is currently not charted. That blood pressure is slightly elevated, so it potentially just may have been missed. I'll come back to medications that have been missed in just a moment. So with our aspirin, we can see that our aspirin is currently charted and it's charted correctly. So the current convention for charting, we're going to be using the square brackets and a dash for unchanged. Is our meprazole? We can see pantoprazole 40 milligrams has been charted. So what we're going to do is put C for changed. Our irbesartan 75 is charted there. So again, we're going to put unchanged. Our nicotine patch is currently not charted, and the patient does require it when they're in hospital, so again we'll fix that when we do the amlodipine. The St. John's wort's not charted, so we can either say that we need to chart that one, or if we don't think that it's important, not saying that St. John's wort's not important at the moment, we put an NC for note, not charted, don't need to be worried about. And then we've got our thyroxine, that's not charted as well. So currently what we're doing is we're just going to be writing C intervention in front of our amlodipine, our nicotine and our thyroxine. However, that can be quite lengthy to do. So when you first open up PowerChart for the very first time and you do your first progress notes, you can actually create what's called an auto text. So we have this little function up the top here which creates auto text. And what we're going to do is create a new one, so clicking on the new page up here, new phrase. We start off by using the Grave symbol. So the Grave symbol is actually a symbol that we don't currently use in our typing, and it's situated next to the 1 and above the tab on your keyboard, and it looks like this. It's a backwards apostrophe essentially. I'm going to put SI for C intervention. My description will be C intervention. And now I actually need to add in text, so when I put this abbreviation, what's actually going to populate in its place. So by pressing that A button, I'm going to write C intervention. And I just need to convert it to the formula above. And now we have it in both fields. So clicking OK, and we're going to save this one. And it's now saved in here as well, and click close. So you can do that for anything else if you want to put in your signature or anything like that. You can also create your own auto text, and this is specific to your login as well. So if you exit out of the system appropriately, this will automatically be saved the next time that you go in. So pressing close. I'm going to go back to my amlodipine. I'm going to put in my Grave. You can see it populates there and it says C intervention. You can also pre-put your brackets in as well, so you don't need to do that. So same thing. We've got that there. And this just makes us note to the doctors, but also to us as well, that there's going to be an intervention put in about this as well. So we'll do that shortly. Oops. Just bear in mind though, this is the current process that we're using, but this may change as we find different ways to manipulate the system. So what we're currently doing, just so you guys are aware, putting a dash for no change, C intervention if it's missing or that the strength is wrong. If it's increased intentionally, we're going to put an I, a D for decrease if it's intentionally decreased, and we're going to put a C for change if it's changed. So the other thing that we need to do is just put in free type at the bottom. What were our sources, as there's no field? So we haven't run our community pharmacy yet, but we can say we can go previous admission. They may have had some of their own medications. and the patient. If many medications have been ceased recently, we can also put that in there. So I can see they've been charted for clopidogrel. I can ask the patient, have you been on this previously? The patient says, yes, I was on clopidogrel for my stent, but that's no longer been stopped as I've been on it for 12 months now. So we can put in our clopidogrel here as well. So they've completed their 12-month course in February 2017. So once I'm happy with this section, I can actually reattach the section. So I'm going to go back up here and click attach. I can see it back here. The other thing to note, if any of these fields aren't actually got any information in it, once we click sign and submit, the headings will actually disappear from our progress note. If there's any fields that have medication in here but you don't want it on there, you can actually delete that section. So I don't need my medication history checklist. But again, it is good to note that it is there in our template. If you're still trying to formulate your own way of doing a medication history, it is there as well. So rather than relying on the map section. There's also other sections that have pre-information in it. So living situation, that's not important for this particular person. However, it may be important if you have an elderly person that gets help at home. We can go from there. So I'm now happy with my history, remembering that we still need to chase up their omeprazole. So I'm going to click on sign and submit, making sure that we've got the right note, we've got the titles fine. You've also got who's authored it as well, and clicking on sign. So now you can see after we click the refresh button that we've now got a progress note against our patient. So if we click on that, this is what our progress note will look like. So you can see that we've got our little symbols there as well. And go with that. So I'm just going to maximize my menu out again. So if there's any other progress notes there, doctor's inpatient notes, admission notes, that will populate in the screen as well if we can remember from previously. So now what we've done that, we actually need to create our interventions as well. So we have a few interventions that we can do, and there's two different ways that we need to do this. So if the medication is actually charted, we can log an intervention against the medication. However, if the medication is not charted, for the example of this one, the amlodipine and the thyroxine, we need to do it a separate way. So for the purpose of our clopidogrel that is charted, what we need to do is go to the medication list tab, find our ordered medications, which are down the bottom here, and we actually need to put an intervention against it there. So we can say aspirin we're happy with, irbesartan we're happy with, pantoprazole we're happy with. The clopidogrel though we're not happy with, unless we obviously wanted to restart it. So what we do is hover over your clopidogrel, right hand click, and you can scroll up to your document intervention. So what we basically need to do is just click one of these fields to say what's happening, and we can just say that maybe there is no valid drug indication for this one because they've completed this 12 months with their stent. We're going to chart and put in the intervention. And we can say patient completed 12 months of clopidogrel for stents now being ceased by cardiologist. Please review current inpatient order. Again, we just tick our fields down here as well so we don't have a current indication. We also need to put in what sort of importance is this as well. So we don't want this patient being on this medication if they don't have to. Scrolling down saying that I've done this one. So as you can see, other people can also do these interventions. It's not just a pharmacy thing. We don't click this box yet. So as you can see, if the intervention's been resolved, we would click yes. As it's still currently charted, it's not been resolved. So for this one here, what we can do is just save it and click the green tick in the left-hand corner at the top, and our intervention's now been saved. So as we can see, if we go back to our multi-patient task list and have a look at our interventions tab, we now have an intervention there for Erin as well. So you can see it's in process, and there's no valid drug indication. You can also double click on that one and see what the intervention was. The other way you can see your interventions, if you're actually back in your power chart, is have a look at this tab that we saw earlier, Activities and Interventions. And this is where the doctors will see the interventions. Please note as well, this does not take away from good communication with your doctor. So the doctors may not always see this. So if it's something that is vital, you make sure you go and physically talk to the doctor and let them know there's an intervention there, as we would normally in practice normally. So the other way that we document an intervention is that using this ad hoc function in the taskbar. So we're clicking on this ad hoc button. We scroll down to what we're missing, so regular medication not charted, and clicking on chart. So we can say some regular medications not charted, so thyroxine, nicotine patch, and amlodipine. So then clicking on our box down here for what the actual classification is. So clicking on your importance as well and who's documented. Again, not signing because it hasn't been rectified. So a doctor can actually go back into these forms as well. So they can actually click on this one and they can edit this. So they could potentially say, not for amlodipine, blood pressure too low, or something like that to that effect. So keep an eye out. The doctors may actually annotate this section too as well. Once that has been charted, you can go back in and click that that's been completed on that form there. Click and the intervention will go away. So theoretically that's been charted, we can always click on the green one. We're going to click refresh and you can see it's complete, but it also takes that away. If you would like to see what other people's previous interventions have been, you can always go down to your Forms tab and you can see that we've got our interventions there as well. So we can double click on our, okay, this is what was there. So if previous pharmacists have completed interventions and you wanted to double check what they were and they've been completed, you can always have a look in this section too as well. We can also modify from this section as too. So if we actually need, if someone's accidentally clicked on the save one, we can always go back in and modify and write some information in there if we need to. We can also go in error if we accidentally have done it under the wrong patient or if it's not relevant to that patient for any reason. And as you can see there, it's been crossed out as well. So we still have our information there as well, but you have to make sure that if something needs to be chased up, it will no longer be in here. You do have to go hunting for the particular form too as well. So again, just giving you an idea that this is a few different ways that we need to document our interventions. So I just also wanted to quickly show you as well another function that we're using. So just down in our taskbar we have our CernaWorks. We have another function called PharmNet. And this is where we verify our medications. It's another way of doing our clinical check. So just logging in, again you'd be using your Novell. Brings us up to PharmNet. So I just also wanted to let you know that if you're in PharmNet looking up a chart, nobody can chart anything in the actual power chart behind you. So just try not to spend too much time in there. If a doctor's in there, it'll actually tell you that somebody's in the chart and it will kick them out of doing power chart. So just be a bit courteous and just be mindful that if someone's in there, try not to do any verification. So we're looking at our patient's UR. Searching for the patient as you would normally before with your 3 identifying features as well, as it can be not site specific. No, we've put an extra J in there. No, it's not coming up. And we can find Erin. We're going into our inpatient view. So just back in your power chart, I just wanted to show you what we're doing about verifying. You can see that above our medications, we've got the little mortar and pestle there as well, which means that we haven't verified it as well. So the doctors know that once that's gone, it's being verified by a pharmacist. So going back into our PharmNet, maybe. Yep. Brings us to a new software program. So it brings up all the medications that's been charted. You can also see automatically that there's also an intervention against the clopidogrel as well. I just wanted to bring your attention to the top end screen that we have this little function here, and that just means that there's 419 orders in the next 30 minutes that haven't been verified. And I believe this is statewide as well, so it's not just at the Logan or the PA hospital. So basically what we need to do in this section is just verify our orders that we're happy with them. So with the aspirin, I'm going to just click on the drop down box in the action, type in V for verify, and so we'll verify the aspirin. I'm going to verify my irbesartan, and I'm going to verify my pantoprazole. We do have a rejection mode, but we're not actually going to do that with the clopidogrel just at this moment, unless it was it's unsafe for the patient to be having it. We wouldn't be rejecting it. So I'm just going to click on apply. We're going to verify each individual drug. And that will bring up my aspirin. If I have any information that I want to put in here, we put that. We're also going to be putting in our annotations here too. So it's unchanged. It also automatically tells me that it comes from the Impress section there as well. However, this will not always be accurate. And press OK. Brings up to my next medication, which is the irbesartan. That's the same thing in the order comments. We're going to put a dash and press OK. And then for the pantoprazole, we'll just put in our C for change. Why I'm putting it at the front is because that's the first thing that people will see. And press OK. You'll now see that we have some little chevrons against the 3. So we just need to complete our order here by clicking submit. And they've now been done. You also notice that we still haven't done our clopidogrel, but we'll just leave that for now. So once we verify, we need to make sure that we clear out our patient, and how we do that is by clicking on this little icon up here, change patients, and that wipes it out. If you leave it in your patient and you accidentally go away, like I said, the doctor's trying to chart for that patient, they won't be able to do it. So going back into PharmNet and PowerChart, refresh my screen. I'll see that those little icons is gone, but I can also see I've got my little annotations here at the bottom too, so we know what's been charted for that patient too. So once those have been documented, we can always go back in and change that too as well. So that just brings us to the end of how to do our progress note, how to do our interventions and verify our medications as well, and just making sure that we've got everything accurate there for us. So once we verify what we're doing with the clopidogrel, we can also go in and verify that if it needs to continue, or the doctor will go in and cease it as well. So just wanted to show you as well really quickly on the medication list. Before we refresh, you can see we've got those little icons there as well. Once I refresh, they've gone. So it's another way the doctor can see what's been verified by a pharmacist as well. So next week we'll go through just reviewing through a patient journey and also the discharge process and go from there as well. We'll talk to you then.